Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. There are zero spoilers for D&D Honor Among Thieves in this content. There are zero spoilers for D&D Honor Among Thieves in this content, but we got to talk about this because we may have a problem with Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. So the best movie reviewer in the world, her name is Grace Randolph. I listen to every video she makes. I watch all of her content. All right? She's truly incredible. She is a mentor to me as a YouTuber. Right? She's an incredible professional. She quite literally is the best movie reviewer in the world. Nobody even comes close. And she's brilliant. She's a genius, right? And so she shared this weekend on Movie Math that Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is tracking to do $25 to $30 million opening. That is horrific, okay? Here's why. The movie cost $150 million, right? So, and in order for, get this, this is rough, peeps. In order for a movie to be considered successful today, a movie needs to triple its budget. Back in the old days, like if you made $100 million, you were good. You got a sequel, everything was fine. Everybody got their checks, everything was happy. Now you got to triple your budget. That means Dungeons & Dragons needs to make $450 million minimum to be considered a success. All right, that's a high, and on a 20 and here's the issue: if you make 25 to 30 million first week, you usually make 50% of your box office in first weeks, which means that the whole movie will track to do 60 million if it far outperforms what it's tracking to do, 120 million total, and not make a profit. That is catastrophic. That is bad, right? So where are we at? Why is this happening, right? So first of all, the reviews, this is not a joke. I have not heard I have not heard one single person who went into this movie and didn't like it. It is 100% off the board. I've listened to no less than a dozen reviews on this film, and it is 100% people go in and say this is an amazing film, right? It's like, the reviews are through the roof. The reviews are spectacular, right? So why, if the reviews are through the roof and spectacular, why are we getting this, right? This horrible tracking, the prediction for its opening weekend is this abysmal number of $30 million, right? Just terrible, right? Why? Well, I'm going to tell you, in my humble opinion, one reason: the name, Dungeons and Dragons. Period. End of sentence, right? So Gary Gygax, he shouts to us from the grave every day, right? And he put something into Dungeons and Dragons called True Name. It's a spell, and it says if you know a thing's true name, right, you can control it, right? And the reality is, the true name of Dungeons and Dragons, the true name of the product is Dungeons and Dragons, right? And the problem is, there was this absolutely horrific prejudiced opinion of Dungeons and Dragons before, in December of 2022, right? And that was D&D's for nerds, right? Now, nerds is not even a functioning word anymore, but there's this old opinion that nerds are still, genre-focused losers who can't get a date and get their books knocked out of their hands, right? And that Dungeons and Dragons is nerd stuff. There's just this cloying, ever-persistent prejudice that simply will not go away, right? Connected to the name of Dungeons and Dragons, right? And I think where we're at is Dungeons and Dragons came forward and did a whole lot, right, to remind people, hey, Dungeons and Dragons is new, it's fresh. This ain't your grandpa's Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like, this is new, and we're bringing something special to you. And Dungeons and Dragons is for you, right? And the OSR came along, and their boycott failed. But what did stick is their D&D Be Gone campaign, right? So there was a D&D Be Gone campaign done by literally thousands of OSR allies. And they said, D&D Be Gone. And they said, hey, everybody, hey, we're OSR allies, right? And what we want to remind you is, remember 1983 when the 1983 Satanic Panic occurred, right? Remember how it wasn't just nerd stuff, but it was actually dangerous occult stuff? And remember all the hatred that spilled out onto Dungeons & Dragons? We want to remind you of that right now, right in front of the movie. We want to make sure that you don't go celebrate people of color who are in the film. We want to make sure that you don't go celebrate progressiveness and the LGBTQ stars and actors and producers and people who are connected to this film. We don't want you to celebrate any of that. We want you to remember D&D hatred right now. And we are going to shout D&D Be Gone in January 2023 to connect you and restore the hatred that Dungeons & Dragons suffered in 1983 so that you can preserve every bit of your 1983 antiquated prejudices toward Dungeons & Dragons. And they essentially slammed Dungeons & Dragons back to the ground and said, don't you dare stand up. Don't you try to tell people you're new or fresh, right? We want to attach that 1983 hatred to you in 2023. And I think the OSR allies may be successful, right? And that the movie, and that while their boycott attempt failed, their attempt to return D&D hatred and fear and regression to D&D in 2023 pulled forward 4 decades by them by using the words D&D Be Gone, literally the words of the OSR allies, literally the words of the American evangelical Christians in the Satanic Panic, literally the words of the OSR allies in the 2023 Manic Panic, that they may have been successful. They failed in their attempt to. They absolutely failed in their attempt to boycott the film, but they succeeded in their attempt to reinforce every horrible stereotype and prejudice about the film. And if D&D fails, if D&D Honor Among Thieves fails, it will be because the OSR allies 2023 Manic Panic were successful in their tireless attempt to shove D&D to the ground and not let it stand when it had a moment to be celebrated. I'm really hoping that this is not the case, but I listen to Grace Randall, man. She says it's tracking for 30 million. It's tracking for 30 million, and that's a problem. What's the source of the problem? The OSR allies. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.